What's up, everybody? I'm Bob Walters. This is Locked Up Sports Bracket Challenge Preview. As we preview the first round of the NCAA Tournament, we talk about the matchups. We talk a lot about St. John's, and we'll even fill out a bracket for you. I'll fill out my bracket right here on today's show. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Bob Walters. It's here, right? The NCAA Tournament is here. It officially started last night, but the first four, I never considered the first four really part of the tournament just because they're not on the brackets, right? They are, but they're not on the brackets. Now, we've had first four teams go all the way to the Final Four, but still, it's a different feel than it is tomorrow, Thursday at noon, when it just all gets kicked off and it's wall-to-wall, just basketball until Sunday night, late Sunday night, and then the smoke clears and there's 16 teams left standing. Usually not many of them are on my bracket still. I'm usually out of it by then. Every once in a while, I'll catch a couple breaks and I'll still have a hope come Sunday headed into the second weekend. But last night, just to get you caught up, and then we have two more games tonight. 2 games last night, 2 games tonight. That's the first four games of the tournament. They get it down from 68 to 64. And the last night, and listen, 2 good games last night. Can't argue with these 2 games. They were both one-possession games. Kids hitting shots at the end of the game to advance their teams into the bracket. Now, and I'm going to speak to you why I don't like one of the games tonight. But last night, Texas beats NC State 68-66. NC State missed a late free throw. Texas went down there, hit the bucket. The kid hit the bucket with the second and a half or whatever left, and Texas advances as the 11 seed onto the bracket. And then the other game was the 2 16 seeds. I mean, not much going on there. The winner goes and plays Duke, but it was UMBC and Howard, 2 conference champions. The one team leagues, and Howard came out with the kid at a 3 late. UMBC couldn't get the tying shot off, and 86-83 Howard advances onto the bracket. Now you got 2 more games tonight. You got 2 11 seeds and again 2 16 seeds. The 2 11 seeds, and I don't like this because I think Miami of Ohio got a raw deal by being put into this game here, this first 4. Now I get it; they were the last team in. I get it that they didn't play anybody this year, but they won 31 games. They were 31-0. 2 games left in the season. 2 games left in the conference tournament to go into this thing perfect. They would have been 33-0, and you better believe they would have not been an 11 seed in the first 4. But they lost in the conference tournament. I think it was the quarterfinals. Listen, I think they've done too much. 31-1. They've done too much to not be in the brackets. And I think it's kind of a slap in the face to Miami of Ohio. Listen, you could have made them a 12 seed. They could have made them a 10 seed. They could have done what they needed to do to get a team that was, up until last week, undefeated. The only undefeated team in the country. And what they do? They put them here in the 11 game against SMU. It's going to be a tough game for them. I think Miami of Ohio comes out of this thing, but I don't like that the committee put Miami of Ohio. I think it kind of degrades what they did. I mean, listen, I don't care who you're playing. You win 31 straight games. You accomplish something. And people are going to say, okay, they no quad 1 wins, no quad 2 wins. They didn't play anybody. Listen, the NCAA has determined that this is a conference where somebody's going to go to the NCAA tournament. So they're not garbage. They won 31 straight games. Put them in the damn brackets. Because that's the big thing for these teams. You want to see your name in the brackets. Everybody's they don't carry them around anymore, but I still carry a bracket around. But they don't carry them around anymore. But you want to be on the brackets. If you're not on the brackets, it just kind of feels like you're not in the tournament. But so that's tonight, and then the 2 16 seeds that we'll play tonight is Prairie View A&M and Lehigh. Yeah, I like Lehigh just because I always like those Ivy League schools. They tend to hit a lot of threes. You never know. Maybe they get hot. They hit some threes. Who knows? But those are your 2 games, the back end of the first 4 tonight. And then tomorrow is when we really get things going. And at noon, is when it all starts. And I remember when I was a kid, and I tell the story every year, we used to go to school until about lunchtime, 11 o'clock or whatever, and then a bunch of us would go. We'd cut the rest of the day. We'd go over to somebody's house. We'd sit there at noon, put those games on. Greg Gumbel would come on the screen, and we would just go basketball until 10, 11 o'clock at night. And you get some great buzzer beaters, and you get some wild finishes, and you get some crazy upsets. There's going to be, because there always is. There always is. It's always some 13 seed or some 14 seed knocks off a 3, and it's just crazy. And it's a lot of fun, and you see, and we talked about it with Sean McDonough the other day, how you really don't care about, Lehigh or a team like that. But when you watch the game and it's the tournament and you know how big it is, and you know what it means to these kids, and you just get invested for those 2 hours. 10 minutes later, you don't really care. There are certain ones that stick with you throughout the years that you remember, the Bryce Drews and stuff like that. But after, you watch them and you invested and you're in it for 2 hours. And I remember when, now they got every game on all the TVs, on all the, on 9 different channels. You got TNT, you got TBS, you got Court TV, you got CBS, of course. They're all on, they get every game. I remember when they used to just jump around. It was only on CBS. It was CBS, and then they'd go back to the studio, and they'd flip to the other game, and then they'd flip back and forth. And then, there's an upset brewing over here, and they throw you just all over the country to all these different arenas, and it was great. It's don't get me wrong, I like having all the games because you could throw yourself around the country and flip around where you want to go. But, it's not the same. But, okay, so this big story around here, obviously, St. John's in the game, in the tournament. They come in red hot. They're coming off of a Big East tournament win. They're coming off of a Big East regular season championship, 2 in a row for both of those. Now, a lot of people are upset with the seeding that they got. 5 seed. How did they get a 5 seed? How did St. John's get a 5 seed and UConn get a 2 when St. John's beat them 2 out of 3 and St. John's won the regular season championship and St. John's won the Big East tournament? All true. UConn is a more talented team than St. John's. Now, UConn could cough it up and they could throw it away with turnovers, and they could be out in the first or second round. That could very possible. They could also go and win this thing. That's very possible too. St. John's can certainly throw it away here. They're in a 12-5 game. 12-5 is the notorious upset. Everybody loves the 12-5. I could read you all the stats. How many of them happen? They happen more often than any other upset. They happen every year. It is what it is. I don't think it's as devastating as people really are playing it out to be. Listen, UConn's a more talented team. Yes, St. John's beat them. St. John's didn't beat anybody outside of the Big East, though. And it's not that they didn't play anybody. They played a couple of teams. They played Kentucky. They played teams that they could have beaten. They could have improved their seed, but they started off so slow that they lost the games that they really needed to win that would have upped their seed here way back in the beginning in the non-conference schedule. And what happened was St. John's gelled right as they hit the Big East in the conference schedule, and they just took off flying, and they've won 19 out of 20. They have just reading here, they're 28-6, but they're still they're a 10.5 point favorite, by the way, over Northern Iowa, and they still are they're 60-1 to win the tournament. So I mean, UConn is probably 35-1. It's just, it is what it is. Now listen, Pitino's going to have this team ready. This is a big weekend for St. John's. Okay, you got to get out of this first weekend, and it's not going to be easy because you got Northern Iowa here, and then you're looking at you're going to be staring down the barrel of Kansas Jayhawks on Sunday. St. John's plays Friday, Sunday here. If they advance, they play Friday 7:10. They got them in a prime spot, prime time, New York audience. That was strategically done. You could take it to the bank. So you got St. John's, the 5 seed. Northern Iowa, the 12 seed. Besides being the 12-5, why are people worried about this being an upset? Why do they think St. John's is gonna be this? A lot of people picking this as their 12-5 upset. I'm not. It has nothing to do with St. John's and me rooting for St. John's. I think St. John's is a much better team than Northern Iowa. Now, what's going to happen here is Northern Iowa is going to try and slow this thing down. If the game is played in the 60s, St. John's is ripe to be picked off here. St. John's is going to want to run. They're going to want to push the tempo. They're going to want to get the game into the 80s. If the game's played in the 80s, that UNI is not going to beat them. That's it. They can't score. They don't have the firepower, the scoring potential that St. John's has. They had in their own league, which the teams are obviously subpar to teams like St. John's. They didn't have it when it came to putting 75. They averaged 60 something a game. One of the lowers in the point totals average points per game in this whole tournament. Now, if St. John's doesn't hit their shots, if they don't involve Mitchell, if they don't involve Sannon, you got to get Sannon the ball to hit a couple threes. I think if they do that with Zuby down low, St. John's is going to be okay in this game. They should win going away. Now, if Sannon doesn't get involved and Zuby gets in foul trouble, and you got Prey out there playing big minutes, and you got Jackson out there playing big minutes, because Jackson, he scores, but he just does a lot of dumb stuff, right? He'll score, and then he'll go back there. He won't try on defense. He won't go for a rebound. He'll make a dumb pass out of bounds, a turnover. He'll score his 10 points. But I think the key to this game, and it's going to be the key to most games with St. John's, is going to be their shooting, and they're going to have to hit a couple threes. They're not going to hit 15 threes like some teams will in this tournament. They're not going to do that. They're not that kind of team. But Sannon loves to play, loves to get that shot off the wing, and he buries it most of the time. And if they could get him on the fast break, have him out there, kind of fan off to the wing on a fast break, kick it out to him, drive and kick. St. John's going to want to be up and down the floor here. They're going to want to run. They're going to want to be very fast paced. They want this game in the 80s. As far as Northern Iowa goes, they're going to try and run. They're going to slow it down. They're going to play their half court sets. St. John's doesn't like that. They're going to walk it across the mid center court, and they're going to just slow it down, and they're going to work it around and try and get a shot, try and get it down low. But now, the St. John's also has good rim protectors. I mean, Zuby had 7 blocks against UConn in the Big East championship game. That set a record. He's gonna get those. And in this game, if he gets them, if he protects the rim like he should, UNI not going to be able to score. And if St. John's hits a couple, threes, they play their game. They don't turn the ball over a million times. They stay out of foul trouble. They're going to be okay. I think they win this rather easily. A lot of people, like I said, are picking this as their 12-5 upset. I don't see it. Now, does that mean it's not going to happen? No, of course not. It's the NCAA tournament. Anything can happen. Anything at any time in any game can happen. We've seen it. We've seen 16s beat 1s. So obviously, you got to go into this thing seriously. I just think St. John's, with the talent they have and with the fact that they can run and they're bigger inside, and now UNI is playing with a lot of seniors, grad student. They're a team that has played together, and that's dangerous in this tournament, because when you have a team that's played together, they're more of a team. This St. John's team, just think about it. This is a brand new team from last year. This is a whole revamped team, and it took them a month to get things going. That first month, we were all sitting here going, 5 in the country? How was this team 5 in the country? But we saw it later in the season. Now the committee didn't think so. The committee didn't think that St. John's was a top 16 team in the country, because they didn't get even a 4 seed. So St. John, the committee looked at it as they didn't win any games out of conference. And yeah, they took off and they played real well in conference schedule in the Big East, but the Big East was no good. It's a 3-team league. And it's UConn, Villanova, and it's St. John's. And is St. John's the best of the bunch? They might be. They might be, because you know what? UConn might be a better team, but in this tournament like this, with the way UConn plays, when they just start, throwing the ball away, which is what they did the other night. They threw it away, and they got 17 turnovers or whatever it was. Now, a lot of people are talking, and you're not going anywhere in this tournament if you're going to do 17 turnovers, no matter who you play. Now, can St. John's make a Final Four run? I don't think so. I just don't. There's a lot of good teams this year. The 1 and 2 lines are loaded, even with the injuries to Duke, Michigan, and I think the loss by Michigan in the Big Ten final championship game on Sunday, I think that's probably the best thing that could happen to them. They lose that game. Okay, it's not the end of the world. They're not playing for the Big Ten championship. They're playing for a national championship. And they were so dominant early in the season. I mean, they were blowing people out up until, through Thanksgiving and up near Christmas. And they were blowing people out by 40 points a night. Nobody was even competing with Michigan. It wasn't even close. They came back to the pack a little bit. Purdue made a great run through that Big Ten. They were 7 seed in that tournament. They ran right through it, right through everybody. Won the thing, and now they got themselves a good seed. But as far as can St. John's make a Final Four run? Listen, let's get out of the first weekend. That's the important thing here. Get out of the first weekend first before you start thinking Final Four and the whole set. Get to the second weekend because that was a bad loss last year. That was a bad loss. Yeah, it was a bad matchup against Arkansas, and they didn't hit their shots. And listen, that can happen. We saw it happen this year for St. John's. We saw it happen against UConn with St. John's up in Stores. It was by 40 points. They have a night like that. On Friday, they're out. You have a night like that anywhere in this tournament, you're out. You only get one shot. And what they're staring down the barrel of Kansas in the second round. Because you got to figure, okay, California Baptist, I couldn't even tell you anything about them. I mean, I don't know. They wanted a last-second shot. They almost lost on the half-court or three-quarters court shot that just went off the back of the iron at the buzzer. They hit a big three. They're going up against Kansas. Kansas is going to win that game. So now you're looking at the 4-5 game on Sunday. St. John's, Kansas. Kansas is not going to be easy. They're long. They're big. They play the kind of game that St. John's does not want them to play. They have good defense out near the 3-point line. So St. John's isn't going to shoot free because most of the guys on St. John's, they don't want to shoot the 3-pointer. Even Darling or Zuby out in the perimeter. He can have a wide open. He's not going to take it. Mitchell. I'm telling you, the key player, Mitchell obviously is one of the key players, but Zuby's going to do his thing. He's going to play well. I don't expect Zuby to have a stinker in any of these games. Sannon hitting a couple threes coming off that bench. And if you could get Darling playing the defense that he does and pick up 2 or 3 steals, it could really change the momentum in these games. And it's not going to be easy for St. John's, Kansas. It's going to be pretty much a pick 'em. It's going to be, that's going to be a nail biter. But if they could get over that hump, and it is what it is, right? Can't complain about that. Yeah, you got Kansas in the second round. That's a blue blood. It's tough. Can't complain. You know what? Every game gets harder. And it only get harder from there because you're going to see Duke in the Sweet 16. If you get past Kansas. And when we talk about Duke and St. John's, listen, I've been in the Garden when St. John's was terrible and winning, 7, 8, 10 games a year. I've seen those St. John's teams beat Duke because that for some reason St. John's always plays well against Duke. Now they'll be heavy underdogs and they probably won't win the game, but there's something there with St. John's and Duke that's been there for a long time when St. John's was even no good. And Duke was, Coach K was running off national titles. St. John's always gave them fits. Even in Cameron Indoor or at the Garden, wherever it was. So I have a little belief there. Now, if they ever get past Duke, then obviously the Final Four run is very possible. Very possible. But I just don't see it. Listen, I think Kansas is going to be tough, and you have to win the Kansas game. if you're Patino, if you're Zuby, if you're the players, if you're the fans, this is not a successful season if you can't get to next weekend, because you have to get some progress here. And I get it. The two Big East championships, it's great. It was a lot of fun. But the NCAA tournament is where you make your name and where you make your money. Because once this thing gets kicked off tomorrow, once they tip this thing up tomorrow at noon, the conference championships are old news. Yeah, they're nice to say you won, but it's old news. It's about this tournament right here, and it's one of my favorite things in the entire sports calendar. The NCAA tournament, the first 4 days, because the body of the tournament, right? Like, it's really a 4-day basketball extravaganza where you just start tomorrow at noon and you go right through till Sunday at 11 o'clock at night. And it's just, that's the tournament. That's the brackets. That's everybody going crazy and the upsets and the buzzer beaters. And that's it. Then when you get to next week, it gets a little more serious. It's more of a basketball fan type of situation. Like, I love it. Next Thursday, Sweet 16 kicks off, and then you got the regional finals. It's great. But as far as these 4 days, this is everybody in America. The lady in accounting is paying attention because she's got $20 on the brackets. You know, your mother who hasn't watched the basketball, who's been telling your wife who's been yelling at you to turn off basketball every night that you put it on is now all of a sudden engaged, and she wants to see if California Baptist can beat Kansas like she picked. That's what this tournament is. And that happens in these 4 days, Thursday through Sunday. Every once in a while, and to be a Cinderella, to be a true Cinderella, you got to get to next weekend. I don't want to. Those aren't Cinderellas. Yeah, they might have a great win. There might be a 13 seed out there that upsets the 4. Great win. But to be a true Cinderella, you got to get to next weekend. And it's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of good matchups out there. A lot of good matchups. And we're going to go over them right now as I'm going to fill out a bracket here. I'm going to throw it in. I don't, as I've told you many times, I don't win these things. I wouldn't go along with my picks for my brackets, to be honest with you. But I thought it'd be fun to fill one out here on the show. And let's get it going right now. All right. So here we go. This is the brackets, the ESPN, bracket challenge, whatever it is. I'm going to give you the pool that we're in and where you want to, if you want to get in the pool with us, if you want to get in my buddy's pool, we're all in it. There's a bunch of people in it. There's good prizes. Maybe you fill out a couple brackets here, but here we go. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. It's going to take us 5 minutes. It's going to be a bracket. I have no preconceived notions as to what I'm picked. I've looked at some of the games. It is what it is. Now, Duke, we'll go with there. This Ohio State TCU is an interesting game. It's the first time Ohio State's been in the tournament since 2022. Okay, TCU is the kind of team that they're going to hit threes. It's not going to shock me if you see TCU hit 7 or 8 threes in a half against Ohio State. Ohio State's still got their big guys down low. It's the first time this group of guys has been to the tournament. I'm going with TCU. I think it's a 3-point game. It's a guards game. It's a shooting the threes, hitting the threes type of tournament. I'm going to go with TCU there. Now, St. John's, I told you before, I like St. John's. I think they're going to beat Northern Iowa. Kansas, I think Kansas wins this one easy as well. Louisville and South Florida, interesting game. Another interesting game. I'm going to go with Louisville. I just think they're a better team. I've seen a little bit of South Florida this year. They're good. Listen, anybody can win any of these games. Michigan State, North Dakota State. Michigan State's a good team. Tom Izzo. I mean, look, this East bracket is loaded. St. John's got a rough draw here. I mean, just look at the coaches you got in it. Pitino, Michigan State with Izzo, Bill Self, Duke. You got Lou. I mean, it's just on and on and on. UCF and UCLA. I like UCF in this one. I think it's going to be an upset game. Not a big upset, but I think UCF knocks off UCLA. The great storied UCLA is back in the tournament. It's been a while for UCLA. They really have fallen off. UConn can't have 20 turnovers against Furman. They will still win. So we'll go with UConn there. UConn to win over Furman. Florida, obviously, over the winner of tonight's 16 game. Clemson, Iowa, another good one. Another the classic 8-9 game. It's going to be tight. It could go either way. It's basically a pick 'em. I'm going to go with Clemson. Here is a 5-12 that I don't like. I think Vanderbilt's better. Vanderbilt beats McNeese State. That's not going to be my 5-12 either. So it only leaves 2 left, right? Because you got to pick one. Everybody, you got to pick a 5-12 upset. Just it's almost a rule that you have to pick a 5-12 upset. Nebraska and Troy. I think now I'm not going to pick it. Or maybe I will, right? I think Troy can beat Nebraska. I think I know they have a kid that hits a bunch of threes. They have some size down low. Let's go here. Let's go with the upset. Troy over Nebraska. Hey, you got to pick a couple that don't make sense, right? Because those are the ones that really, that's what happens, and then someone gets screwed. The thing here is to have as many teams. It's not the first. The upsets in the first round are not going to kill you, unless you have that team going far. You got to have as many Sweet 16 teams as possible left on Sunday night. Now, here's another interesting game. VCU, North Carolina. Blue blood, North Carolina. VCU obviously have made it to the final, a miracle run to the Final Four. I think North Carolina is vulnerable in this game. I think they could definitely be beat, and I'm going to pick VCU to upset North Carolina and win the first round and advance to the second round, where they will play Illinois. Now, Penn, it's an interesting, like I said, these smart white kids from these Ivy League schools could shoot the basketball, and they played together forever. I just don't see it. Now, it could happen. Obviously, it could happen. St. Mary's, Texas A&M. I love St. Mary's in this. I think they're a good team. I watched a lot of that tournament last week. St. Mary's is going to win that game over Texas A&M. Houston, obviously, over Idaho. And then we get the 116 out in the West. It's going to be Arizona, unfortunately, right? They're going to beat LIU. Not going to beat Arizona. Villanova, Utah State. I like Utah State in this. I don't think Villanova is very good. I've seen Villanova a bunch of times. I've seen them. They don't play very well in these big games. I don't see it. I just think it's been a down year for Villanova. They were all right. They had a good record. They were the 3 seed, but they didn't play well in the Big East tournament against UConn. They didn't play well at all. They got blown out. So I'm sorry, against Georgetown. Georgetown beat them, and Georgetown's not a good team. Has some talent, but they're not a good team. So we're gonna go with Villanova out. So that's already one of the Big East teams out. Here's the 5-12. I think has a chance. High Point. I don't know too much about him. I'd see people talking about picking him. Not crazy about Wisconsin. We're going High Point is going to be a 12-5 in the West. Hawaii, Arkansas. Arkansas is going to win that. Hawaii's tough, but I don't think they have the talent to beat Arkansas. BYU, Texas. Texas coming off the big win last night, the buzzer beater. He could have big thing and everything. Sometimes that does give you a little momentum from these first 4 teams. Not here. BYU, good team. They're going to win that game. Gonzaga's going to run all over Kennesaw State. Miami, Missouri. I like Miami. I think they win that game. Purdue and Queens. Purdue, obviously. And then we go to the Midwest region. Michigan, Howard. Michigan. Georgia and St. Louis. Interesting game here. I'm going to go with Georgia. I know a lot of people are picking St. Louis. It's going to be a tight game. Could go either way. Give me Georgia there. Texas Tech, Akron. Here's another 5-12 that I like, and I'm going to go with Akron. I'm picking 2 12-5s, 2 12-5 upsets. It's not going to be the St. John's one. It's going to be this one right here. I think this one might have the best chance. Texas Tech coming in off a good year. They played well last year. I could see them stumbling here and losing to Akron. Alabama, Hofstra. Here's another interesting one. I think Hofstra keeps it close. I think they did. It's a 14-point spread. I think they cover the spread easily. I think we get a tight game here. I think Alabama will win, but I'm going with Hofstra just because, for the hell of it, because I want Hofstra. Because I want to root for Hofstra. That's why. And I think they have a chance. I think they can play well. They can shoot threes. They think they have a shot. Probably not. But like I said, you got to pick a couple of these things. Tennessee is going to win that one over whether either Miami of Ohio or SMU. I think it's going to be Miami of Ohio. They're a good team. They're not going to be Tennessee. Virginia, Wright State. Give me Virginia. Kentucky, Santa Clara. Kentucky could lose this game. Definitely. I think they're going to put it together. I think they win the game. Expect it to be close. Santa Clara is a good basketball team. Iowa State, give me Iowa State easily. And then we get to the second round, and we'll start down here with UConn and UFC. I'm the UCF. Central Florida can beat UConn. They're gonna have one of these games, UConn, where they're throwing the ball all over the place. They're throwing it to the other team. I think UConn gets upset here in the second round. They lose to UCF. UCF a 10 seed into the Sweet 16. I like Michigan State to beat Louisville. I think Michigan State is a good team this year. I think they're dangerous. St. John's, Kansas. Let's give it to St. John's. Let's put them in the second weekend where they really have to get. St. John's got to get to that second weekend. It's going to be a close game. Kansas can absolutely win that game. Give me St. John's to go to the Sweet 16, and then Duke to beat TCU, setting up the Duke St. John's showdown in the Sweet 16. Well, we'll see what happens when we get there, and we're there right now. So now you got a Sweet 16 matchup. Duke. Wait, did I do it? No. Okay, here we go. Then we'll go to the South for the second round. Florida, Clemson. Florida's going to win that. Clemson's a good team. They'll give them a fight. It's both SEC. And then Vanderbilt and Troy. Give me Vandy. Troy, nice story, but they're not going to win two games in this tournament. Illinois here, VCU. I want to pick VCU here. I do. I'm going to pick VCU. VCU upsets. You get an 11 seed into the Sweet 16. VCU upsets the number 3 Illinois there. St. Mary's, Houston. I think St. Mary's gives them a game, but Houston's better, and Houston's going to win that game. Arizona, we're going to put them through too. Now, a lot of times there's one seed that doesn't get out of that first weekend. This year, I don't see it. I think the 1 seeds are very powerful teams. High Point, Arkansas, Calipari. High Point, good story. Don't get into the Sweet 16. BYU, Gonzaga. I'm gonna go with Gonzaga here. I think Gonzaga is the better team. It's gonna be a little bit chalky here in this one. Except here, I Purdue. You know what? Purdue's gonna win. I like Purdue. I like the way they're playing. They're coming in red hot. They just won that tournament out of nowhere, the Big Ten tournament. Give me Purdue to beat Miami, and we're chalk here in this region right away. So Michigan, I think Michigan wins. And then we got this wild scene here. Akron, Hofstra. Give me Hofstra. Let's put Hofstra through the 13 seed. There, your Cinderella. Hofstra into the Sweet 16 over Akron. This is going to be a rough bracket. I'm telling you, people. This is going to be a rough bracket. I know. It's either going to be a great bracket or it's going to be terrible. Tennessee, Virginia. Give me Tennessee into the Sweet 16 and upset a 6 seed. So right here in this region, the Midwest region, I got Michigan, the 1 seed, Hofstra, the 13 seed, Tennessee, the 6 seed, and I'm going to put Iowa State, the 2 seed. So I got the 1 and 2 seeds, and then 2 just crazy Cinderellas. Sweet 16, the 26th and the 27th, 2 days before opening day for the Mets and the Pirates and the Yankees and the Giants out west. Duke, St. John's. I told you St. John's always plays them tough. Can they make the run to the Final Four? Duke has injuries. St. John's is obviously playing well if they get to this point. Duke beats them. Duke advances. They beat St. John's, but St. John's does get to the second weekend. It's a successful tournament for St. John's and for Patino. They can lose to Duke and be okay with it. UCF, Michigan State. Give me Michigan State over UCF. They have a good run. It ends in the Sweet 16. Florida, Vandy. Florida. So again with the 1 seed. You got to beat one of these 1 seeds though, right away. And I think I'm going to do it with Arizona and Arkansas, but we'll see. Houston, VCU. Give me Houston. Love Houston. I think Houston's right there, one of the better teams in the country. Obviously, they're a 2 seed, but I think Houston is a high 2 seed. They could definitely win this whole thing. Arizona, Arkansas, here we're going to knock out one of the first 1 seed to go down. It's going to be in the Sweet 16. It's going to be Arkansas on to the Elite 8. Purdue, Gonzaga. Give me Purdue. They're playing too well. Gonzaga's a good team. They're going to get to that Sweet 16. They're going to lose right there. Purdue into the Elite 8. Michigan over Hofstra. Yeah, Hofstra's magical run ends in the Sweet 16. Tennessee and Iowa State. Give me Iowa State. Good basketball team, Iowa State. They could absolutely get to a Final Four. So now here we go. These are the games that get you to the Final Four. It's regional finals. Duke and Michigan State. I think this is where Duke kind of falters. I think the injuries catch up with them. Michigan State, Izzo knows how to coach these teams against big games, in big games. Tom Izzo gets to another Final Four with Michigan State, put them in. They win the East region. South region. Florida, Houston. Give me Houston. Kelvin Sampson into the Final Four, a 3 and a 2 seed. Knocked out both 1 seeds right there in the Elite 8. Purdue, Arkansas. Give me Purdue. Purdue into the Final Four. They ride this great wave. They've just been fantastic. They're red hot. They go all the way in. Purdue into the Final Four. And finally, give me Michigan to beat Iowa. I think Michigan beats Iowa. I think Michigan's probably the best team in this tournament. And we're gonna go with a Houston, Michigan final championship game. You know, listen, I don't know. You don't know. When you get to this point, you're like, how I get out? Where's the good teams? What happened? You knocked them out. That's what happened. As I said, it's probably going to be a disaster. Let's see. Michigan and Houston. Let's go Houston. Houston wins your national championship. How many points total will be scored in the championship game? Let's say it's these two teams, they score, let's say 165. So 165. We are going to submit. We're going to call this bracket. We're going to submit this bracket, and we are going to see how it goes. And you guys can make fun of me when it's a disaster, or I'll take the credit. When it's a win, I'm going to enter it into the pool. Submit bracket. There we go. And we're going to put this as Locked Up Sports. Locked Up. Whoops. Okay, so there's that, and we'll see how that plays out. I don't know. I don't think it's probably not going to play out very well, right? It never does. Never does. So that's going to do it for us. It all gets underway tomorrow, everybody. 12 o'clock, tip-off, first game. St. John's is Friday at 7. Don't forget, we will be carrying the game. I'll be calling the game right here on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, on Twitch. Any way you can get it, it's a radio call of the game. It's the same thing we've been doing here for the last bunch of St. John's games, most of the season. So we're going to continue it right through the tournament. We're going to have coverage all day Friday. So we're going to have Friday games. We're going to have studio stuff like this with me and Brett, and we're going to be kicking you around, giving you scores. We're going to have a couple games where it's a radio call, and then St. John's at 7. We will have the full game for you, St. John's and Northern Iowa. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It all starts tomorrow. And then we're, right into spring. Baseball, opening day. We got to get Bob Usler on. We got to get the Babe Ruth guy on. I just finished reading his book. I'm going to email him. Real good book. Real interesting. It's a different kind of book, but real interesting. We'll get to all that. But first, we got the brackets. Get your brackets. Fill out your brackets. Starts tomorrow, 12 o'clock. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Every little bit helps. And don't forget to check out the St. John's game right here, Locked Up Sports, the official internet home of the NCAA Tournament of St. John's basketball. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm Bob Walters from the Brian Gunzel Studios. See you.